Strong families make strong communities. I know this personally. When I grew up, life was really hard. My parents really struggled. My dad had lost his job, and that started leading to drinking. It started leading to drugs. And it led to one night, my dad coming home really drunk and really angry. And I remember as a little 6-year-old girl, just being terrified. I didn't know better. But as my dad was yelling at my mom, I put myself in between my mom and my dad, and I grabbed a baseball bat, and I just begged my dad. I said, please stop. And in that moment, my dad, he started to sob. He knew he needed help. He was a great dad. He was just really struggling. And my mom knew she needed to leave, but she couldn't do it alone. She couldn't do it alone with 3 children. She needed support. My mom was able to connect with a local church, and they were able to help my mom navigate a really difficult time in her life. And not only did they help my mom, they helped my dad get through a prison sentence. And when he got out of prison, they helped him get a second chance. They helped him find a job, and that job kept my dad sober. It gave him structure, it gave him purpose, and it helped us heal as an entire family. And because of loving strangers inserting themselves into the messiness of our family, my parents, they ended up getting remarried. Our family was whole again. And we were so fortunate and so blessed to have these people come and invest time into our lives. But unfortunately, a lot of families are struggling in crisis right now, and they don't have that social connection. I want you to get your phone out right now. Yep, get your phone out. I want you to click on your contacts and just kind of scroll. If you had an emergency right now, do you have somebody that you could call? Unfortunately, we work with families every single day, and they tell us that they have not a single person that they can call when life gets hard. And what happens when you're living in isolation and you're struggling? These problems become really big problems, and they become so much to bear. And that leads to the breakdown of families, to the breakdown of communities. 1 out of 5 millennials actually say that they don't have a friend, which is tragic. And millennials are not kids anymore. Millennials are young adults who are saying that they don't have anybody that they can contact when life is hard or they're going through a temporary crisis. And we all go through temporary crisis situations. It could be an illness. It could be a job loss. It could be struggling with mental health. Maybe it's addiction. You want to do the right thing. You want to get healthy, but you have nobody to support you and help you navigate that situation. And what happens when families and people in our community don't have community solutions? They turn to government. And the pandemic has only made isolation and government dependency even more critical as far as hurting families. We're working to change that at Better Together. At Better Together, we're solving family breakdown and dependency with what we believe is the most powerful and least leveraged forces in America: the local church and volunteers. We advance our mission through 2 programs. We have our Better Families program, and this helps families that are going through a crisis by providing a temporary home for their children. A safe place is completely voluntary, a place where parents can place their children short-term and work through a crisis situation and know that when they are ready, they can be reunified with their children. And that's empowering, to be able to place your children and have a safe place for them so you can better yourself and better your situation. And what's amazing about this program is 98% of the families we serve stay together. And it's not just a Band-Aid. This is long-term. These families are coming to us, most of them from the Department of Children and Families and law enforcement. They're on the verge, the front doorstep of foster care. But volunteers are coming alongside. They're helping them find jobs. They're mentoring them. They're supporting them. They're helping care for their children. And as a result, these families are staying together, and we're changing the trajectory of families. We are creating dignified solutions to really complicated problems. And so I want to tell you just about one of those families. Roxanne and Patrick, they're really struggling, paycheck to paycheck like a lot of American families. And then they lost their jobs. They were working at a restaurant and it closed out of the blue, just like a lot of families that were impacted by the pandemic. Quickly, they lost their home. They were living in a hotel and they couldn't even pay the bill for their hotel anymore. And now they were homeless with 5 children in the middle of a hot Florida summer. The Department of Children and Families was called out. There was no room in any local shelter. And because they knew us and we had a partnership, they reached out and introduced this family to us. We hosted the children while we worked with the parents to be able to find them a new job. And within 90 days, that's all it took. They were able to earn their own money to be able to get into a place that they could call home and be really proud of. And were unified with their children. And they had this community of people behind them. People that they never knew are now actively invested in their lives and care about them and their well-being and their future. For 80% of the families we served, we realized that the root cause was job loss, and we wanted to be even more preventative. We wanted to get more upstream. So we created our Better Jobs program. Our Better Jobs program works with churches all across the country to host job fairs, and they're not just your typical job fair. These are job fairs with an atmosphere of redemption and celebration. So you might be wondering, why churches? Well, churches are a place where people can learn skills, good moral character, to be better citizens, spouses, and neighbors. Churches have always been just a force in our history of compassion. And 98% of American churches have a handout ministry. They're wanting to help their community. They're treating symptoms, but they're not getting to the root cause. Less than 2% of churches have a jobs ministry. We're working to flip that number, where more churches have an employment ministry where they're helping people find jobs and not just treating symptoms. And churches want to help their communities. They want to build meaningful relationships with their neighbors, but they struggle to do that. So our Better Jobs program has become a really easy yes for churches to get involved. And since 2016, our jobs ministry has helped over 36,000 people get connected to employment. And these are people that are really struggling with a lot of barriers and challenges. Maybe they have a past history of addiction. Maybe they need a second chance, and they're returning citizens. 25% of the people who attend our job fairs are on food stamps. But when they walk through the door, we're not focused on their past. We're focused on their potential. And this is what you'll see. You'll see volunteers coming alongside and supporting them, giving them encouragement, building up their confidence, and introducing them to employers that are willing to hire them on the spot. You'll also see free haircuts. You'll see clothing, people coming in, homeless, walking away with a haircut and a new outfit and a job. You'll see hiring managers who are actually interviewing, hiring on the spot, and invested in their success. You'll see a bell that rings. And when it rings, the whole room, they applaud and they celebrate the opportunity. You literally see people jumping up and down because they got a job. And you see employers that are not, they're really invested in the people who are walking through the doors. They're offering great paying jobs, advancement and opportunity, and they're offering skills for them to learn. You wouldn't believe the amount of people that we've had who have lost hope, who had given up, and now they're managers because an employer took a chance on them and gave them an opportunity. And our model, it really works. So Alyssa, she walked into one of our job fairs in Jacksonville, and on paper, Alyssa was not going to be the best hire. She had a history of addiction. She was formerly incarcerated. And she walked through the doors and she met with an HR manager who said, I can't hire you because of your past. But she got to know Alyssa and she got to hear her story and she got to hear the steps that she's taken since she was released from jail. And she hired her on the spot, and she made sure that when her background check came through, it went directly to her desk. That way, she could get the approvals necessary to be able to bring Alyssa on the team. And within 2 months, Alyssa was promoted not once, but twice. Alyssa had a lot of challenges. It was like going against the current. But the job fair changed the flow of the current. It can be really hard for families when they do face a lot of barriers and challenges to be able to find meaningful employment. But our job fairs help change that flow. And it can be the other way for millions of other people like Alyssa. When you have the power of community, the tide does change. Of course, though, this all happens after they come to the job fair. It sounds really simple. You just have to show up, get to the job fair, right? It's pretty easy. How come we can't get some people here? Well, many assume that a lot of families, maybe they're lazy, they're unwilling to work. They don't want to help themselves. And yes, there are some, but after working with thousands of Americans who are unemployed, I can tell you that that assumption is wrong. For some, it's logistics. They don't have a ride to the event. They don't have childcare. How can you hold a job if you don't have childcare? Maybe they don't have a resume. Maybe they don't have clothing to wear for an interview. But for others, it can be so much deeper. And this, to me, is one of the most tragic things, is when people lose hope. Our modern workforce has really dehumanized the whole job-seeking process. If you don't just hit certain boxes, algorithms, just push your resume away. And long-term unemployment can feel like a revolving door of rejection. And that's how people fall into dependency traps. And it really robs people of their dignity and their God-given potential. At one of our job fairs, a volunteer noticed a man who wouldn't walk inside. He wasn't coming, he wasn't going, he was just kind of standing there and he was pacing back and forth. And so they walked outside and they're like, what's going on? What's your story? And so he told them that he had been rejected 152 times. He counted. And so he simply stopped looking. And he started to collect a government paycheck. and his mental health started to really struggle. He had been encouraged to attend the job fair from a volunteer. They were going door to door, like they do for a majority of our job fairs, and knocking on the door, and they met Ben, and they encouraged him to come. So he took a chance, and he came to the job fair. But he was scared to go in. He didn't want to face rejection one more time. He said, I don't think I have it in me. He didn't need an incentive program. He didn't need a policy change. He needed a person. He needed a person to show up on his doorstep and say, I believe in you. You have potential. He needed someone to meet him at the door and say, Ben, you can do this. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. The best policies in the world can't do that. Programs don't change cities. People do. Getting people invested in other people's lives without expecting a single thing in return is how you build social trust and relationships and connections. Civil societies need social trust. So maybe when you read the news, you get a little depressed and you see these big, messy social problems, and you feel helpless. Don't be. At Better Together, our team and our churches and our volunteers are getting people back to work and helping keep families together. We're creating a world where everybody has somebody to call when life gets hard. Civil society is alive and well, but only because we make it so. Civil society is not a principle, it's a practice, it's an action. And together, we can all be a part of the solution. Thank you.